Welcome to Getting Ghosted. This is an Intuitive Soul Collective podcast, and I'm your host, Allie Horner. Hello, everyone. We are coming into a really cool time period. I feel like I have been getting so many downloads on the energy of the future lately, and it's very collective level energy. So like general things that it's more the undercurrents of the things that are going on. It's not necessarily always about a precise event. It's more like, here are some of the things that we're seeing. Here are some signs of it. Here's the energy waves of the future. It's been really interesting. And it's just been so fun to explore. Like the more that I channel on it, I feel like the more it comes through. And it comes through in like bursts of information, but it feels like it's been this current sort of like flowing now for a little while. And this happens for me like in really intense time periods. Like it's like I'll spend a lot of time feeling very, very present, and all of a sudden feeling like I'm picking up a whole big transmission on things to come. So super, super cool. And lately what I've been very focused on, obviously we've been channeling Anna quite a bit. And now something else that's been coming forward is the energy of 2027 and the shift that's coming there. So there have been a lot of channelers have been talking about 2027 for a long time, myself included. I've been feeling and getting messages both about 2025 and 2027 for a long time. And I even channeled a lot about this upcoming decade in my 2025 energy guide. So for any of you who got that, there was quite a bit about the future in there. And then a lot of things came through in some of the podcast episodes where we talked about incoming shifts and changes. Now, what I believe for 2027 we'll see is a much larger shift that happens on a deeper level. It's not just one event or another. It's more about the underlying current and what's going on spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physiologically, energetically that's causing these other like actual surface level events to happen. And so we also see this mirrored in the gene keys, which was received by divine transmission to Richard Rudd. He actually channeled the whole gene key system. And I have found it to be really, really interesting and really cool. So I highly recommend pulling your free chart. This is not a system I own or anything like that. You just Google gene keys and you'll be able to find your free chart online. And then Human Design System has also been talking about 2027 for a while. Ra, channeled a whole bunch about this system before. And both of these systems are meant to evolve over time. And so you can see how this time period is being talked about kind of across the board for quite some time, because there is so much energetic shift and change that is sort of going to come in 2027, but we've been seeing it beforehand. Like I was really sitting down and noticing for myself that the shifts we're coming out of are being mirrored already. Like we're already seeing the push-pull. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about that today. Before I fully get going with this, just know that I have 2 courses on channeling coming up. I'm also teaching a class on channeling this week and another class on Autowriting. I hope that you will come and attend and get a taster of the upcoming courses. They're going to be all about clear conduit or lucid channeling, diving into trance channeling, and then moving into Autowriting as well. So you can pick and choose which classes you get as a taster, and then the courses will start in the summer. I hope you guys can come and join us. Everything is linked in the show notes and in my link tree and on my website. Now diving into the year 2027. So essentially we are leaving a larger 400-year cycle right now. It was called the cross of the planning according to human design. And essentially during this time period, we saw a lot of the world needing to create systems and structures that would benefit the larger population. And so this is when we saw industrialization. We saw huge upgrades in road systems, right? We saw upgrades in planning. We saw a lot of upgrades in the emergence of tech, right? Things that would allow, that would be able to help and sync up an entire population, change the way we work, etc. We also saw the emergence of the 9-to-5 in the last 400 years. We saw the education system really come into play and get really solid, and especially in westernized countries. We saw agriculture. There was so like governmental systems, healthcare, education, like transportation. It was all about larger systems that were here to help the collective survive. Okay. And so during the cross of the planning, that's what it was really for. But the other flip side of this that we saw was even with all of this progress in terms of our systems and structures, many of the systems and structures, because they're large systems and because they were created with the larger collective in mind, it was kind of like, hey, this one large system is meant to serve all of these people. But it doesn't really work that way when you have so many individuals in a population who have varying needs and wants and life paths and soul purposes. And so what we started to see and what we are seeing, just as we're exiting that 400-year cycle, is that, we're starting to see people kind of question the systems at play. We're seeing the crumbling of the systems that were kind of built more like a house of cards, where they're not able to stand up to the collective changes that need to happen. Now, this is kind of good because as we exit this previous 400-year cycle, we're going to enter the 2027 new 400-year cycle, which is called the Cross of the Sleeping Phoenix. Now, this is more characterized by a shift from survival into thriving, but we can't do that until the collective is allowed to operate as sovereign individuals within a larger group. And so this old era of one size fits all, and think about how there was a lot of unwritten rules, like unwritten societal rules, sacrificing the self for the group or for the family. Think about old outdated thought processes like family is everything, or like these old thought processes that really kept I hate to say it, but sometimes really unhealthy systems going. The corporate structures of the 9 to 5 where, they could really just take advantage of people. Really think about in the past, you used to be able to work for a company and you got a pension and you were taken care of and you could plan to stay there for 30, 40, 50 years. And if you passed away, they'd take care of your family afterward and your health benefits were great. Well, a lot of that started to crumble in the last, 25 years. Very quickly. And so there's been even we're seeing the crumbling of the social security system. So as we enter the Cross of the Sleeping Phoenix, which is all about sovereignty, individuality, and being able to thrive, what we're going to see in this new system is the honoring of the individual path and purpose. And so think more it's not about being selfish. It's more about understanding that it's okay for individual people to have their own thoughts, their own feelings, their own ideas. It's more about putting the power back with the people versus then having the power in the systems and the people that created them themselves. So keep in mind too, that as we move into the Cross of the Sleeping Phoenix, there have been a lot of shifts and changes that have been kind of happening over the last 25 years where we're seeing the end of one cycle and the beginning of the next. And we're going to continue to see this sort of rumbling and crumbling as the new system emerges. There have already been a lot of seeds planted around it, but it's just one of those things where it's hey, we have to remember this is a long game. This is a 400-year cycle. This is not going to be an overnight change. It's going to take some time, and it's really important that we give it the time it needs because we don't want to build the new the same way that we were building the old. And so we have to have a little bit of time to see which systems and structures, which processes are going to stick from the past and where we're going to be going in the future. Now, we're going to start to see this happen in a lot of cool areas. And some of the areas I've been seeing it are already, like I said, they've already been emerging for a while. Now, this new era that we're walking into in February of 2027 is all about trusting your intuition, because your intuition is essentially how your soul, how your inner guidance speaks to you and through you. This is your inner knowing of what the truth is. It's your inner knowing of what's right for you, of what actually feels precise. So this is a time period in which I'm noticing a lot of people awakening to their intuition. And I believe a lot of us had our spiritual awakenings within the last 10 to 15 years because we were out ahead of this change and feeling this shift before it was fully meant to start to come into play, because we're meant to shepherd and guide other people. And that's why so many of us started to feel this calling around our awakenings, around teaching, around really refining our intuitive skills, our psychic skills, our higher sensory skills, and our clairs, because we're meant to kind of be creating a new system, not one that's created the way the systems of the old were, but we're meant to help people find their own true north. And that's really important because in the past, especially for basically anyone who wasn't a straight white man, in the previous, 200 years, essentially, you were seen as stupid or silly. You could be put in jail. You could be killed. A lot of women were put in asylums and things like that just for having different wants, different needs, different opinions, etc. And so one of the things we're going to see is this reemergence of the spiritual self born within the person as it was meant to be, but less encumbered by the systems that exist. In the past, the systems that exist were patriarchal. They upheld this system that wanted us to repress our inner knowing, and our inner knowing is connected to the truth of the whole, of why we really came here as humanity. And so you can trust your intuition to do, I always say, like, your intuition will guide you to what's best and highest for you and for all. It's never going to be self-sacrificial, and it's also not going to harm others. And that's where we're emerging into, is this sort of like nice intuitive in-between place where we recognize our sovereignty, we honor the sovereignty and the authenticity of ourselves and others, without seeing it as such a threat. Whereas in the past, the previous systems and structures saw individual sovereignty or authenticity as a threat. People are often silenced for speaking out. They were silenced for wanting to change the systems. They had to fight really hard to do that. And where we're going to be moving into is more of a society that honors the sovereign person. Now, I do think we're going to see a little bit of a rumbling with this, right? Like, because imagine a whole group of people trying to learn how to trust their own intuition when that was never made safe for them before. There's going to be a lot of stop starts and a lot of push pull with it. We're going to see a lot of people struggling. And then as the old systems are dying off, there will be people who are like really rampantly against it, but more and more people are going to come online with it, because this isn't just a choice to trust and follow intuition. It actually has to do with our larger evolution of our solar plexus and the larger evolution happening within our very DNA, within the collective. And so as this evolution happens, we will have more and more of these, it's almost like interdimensional shifting, where we are beginning to have heightened and brightened senses. We've talked about this on other episodes, but it's something that's just naturally starting to happen to people. They're becoming more sensitive, they're becoming more psychic, and they're becoming more aware. This is part of a larger evolutionary process. And so 2027 for many channelers, and according to the gene keys in the human design, is kind of like a collective reemergence, a tipping point that's happening. Now, remember, it's not going to all happen overnight, but we're going to see a lot more of this happening. And again, one of the things I've said in the past is many, many times is we are going to see far more children being born now than ever who have their psychic senses fully online. They remember past lives. They know what's happening in the future. They see behind the scenes in situations. They know when you're lying. They know when you're bullshitting. They're just going to be very, very, very telepathic, very aware, and very sensitive. And so energetically, we're going to have a lot of cleaning up to do to make sure we're staying in truth, because when we're not, that creates a lot of friction in the energetic field. It creates a lot of agitation and irritation. These children will be so sensitive, they're not going to be able to sit in that agitation, irritation, collective shame. So we're going to see, I believe, a pretty fast change into people trusting and using their intuition far more. And I think people will be rewarded when they do, because they'll be in their higher alignment. Now, that's part of the gift of this 2027 timeframe, is that, again, it's going to take time, and yet at the same time, it doesn't have to take time at all. If you're like, okay, I'm going to go with the flow of these larger collective changes, I acknowledge that this is something I need to do, and I choose to be in this higher frequency, right? And so with this intuition coming online, one of the signs we've been seeing is a lot of people, first of all, having their awakenings, secondly, having heightened senses, and lastly, even just having basic things like, I'm noticing in my readings, a lot of people coming forward who are like, yeah, I can't, I don't know. It feels like something's shifting. I feel like my career is shifting. I feel like my relationship's shifting. I just feel like there's certain things I just can't do them anymore. Like I used to be totally fine with ignoring how I felt or doing things the old way, but I can't do it anymore. But I don't know where I'm going next. Can you help me? Like that's definitely a sign that you're energetically feeling this shift. Like your brain is going, okay, I know what I'm leaving, but I'm afraid, maybe a little afraid, like still hanging on because I don't know what I'm jumping into next. I don't know where we're going next. And so that's in essence what's happening is you're meant to be finding your individual path. You're meant to be listening to your intuition now more than ever. This is the big piece that's happening. That's kind of like the catalyst for everything else. Because when you start to listen to your intuition, you can't lie to yourself anymore. It's not just about being a human lie detector with others. It's what lies or what dishonesties are you keeping within yourself that you can no longer do. And so the more that you listen to yourself, the more that you create that frequency of truth within you. It clarifies your energy field. It clears out muck in your energy field in your body, and other people can sense and feel that, and it creates sort of a ripple effect around you, and it's really cool. So as this begins to happen, we will imagine when people are listening to their intuition more, we're going to see people being more authentic and more sovereign because they're not going to care as much about the status quo. They probably won't care about aesthetics and trends. They probably won't care about keeping, staying, the thing that always comes to mind is stay together for the kids. So ignoring how you feel, ignoring what you know is right. People will be in truer alignment in relationships over time if they're able to trust and follow their intuition. People will be in better and better careers, working in ways that work better for them. So again, we're already seeing it, but the 9 to 5 will start to crumble because it doesn't work for everyone. Will there still be some people in it for at least for quite a while? Yes. But there will be, and already has been, a major shift away from it. I had someone comment the other day and they were like, I just can't see that happening. And I was like, well, I don't know the last time you read any research or statistics or about the emergence of the entrepreneurial, and people having side businesses and stuff, but we're already over 50% as a population. It's massive. So they're predicting by 2027 that there will be over 50% of the population will have some form of at least a business, if not more than one extra line of income that is individually business based. So not even a 1099, but literally having your own freelance business on the side, even if you have a full-time job. But a lot of people are moving into pure entrepreneurship, and we're going to see that really emerge more and more as time goes on. I don't think it's all going to happen overnight in 2027, as I've always said, but it is going to be coming, and we're going to see that shift big time over the next 10 years. Now, where we saw this initially is really think back, was the emergence of the internet. Right. With these big 400-year cycles, remember, we see seeds being planted ahead of time. And so what's funny is during the cross of planning, which is about systems and structures, think about initially where the internet came from. It was originally about connecting people to information across the globe. And then we had the emergence of, Facebook and MySpace and stuff, again, connecting people across the globe. So a larger system built by specific people for more people. So this is putting a lot of the power back in the hands of the people, right? At least initially that was the intention. And now we're moving into, and that allowed, I should say before I move on, that really allowed a change in the 9 to 5. It allowed a change because people could work from home. It allowed a change because people could pick up side work really, really easily. That was online without leaving their houses. This really changed what people had access to. They could find jobs online. They didn't have to go out and search for them and run around to interviews and run in and out of the office and commute all the time. It's really changed things, right? And soon enough, we had people going, well, why would I stick with just one 9 to 5 job that doesn't fit how I need to work when I'm a multi-passionate person, or when I don't work well in that environment and there's LED lights in there and I'm in a hobbit hole and it doesn't feel, except it's not cozy and it's gray. And so we're seeing more and more people who have access to not just information, but to different ways of working because of the internet, right? So this is where that previous 400-year cycle and the themes of it with industrialization, creating systems and structures actually served and helped this new age of sovereignty, authenticity, and it's going to be a little bit more hyper individualistic until people kind of figure it out. But this is where we really see people going, well, I can trust and follow my intuition because I have access to tools that support me thriving when I do so, like the internet, right? So I can create an online business. I can create, make money through social media, or I can find a different type of job online, or I can, work remotely for a company that's halfway across the world. And so there's all these things that emerged out of that. That's like a great idea, example out of, that I think where we've seen this shift coming out ahead of time, where we've seen this time period where we're having the two things sort of like blend together. Another area I was really thinking about earlier is I think we're going to see this emergence in what we're seeing right now is people are moving away, for example, from suppressing their self-expression. They're moving more and more into seamless self-expression. And so in the past, it was like you could have an individual voice, but it was harder to get it out there, right? We didn't have the tools yet. The systems didn't really allow it. There was a lot more cultural suppression. Again, like I mentioned, you could literally get put in an asylum. People could say you were crazy. You could get put in jail. You could get killed over it. This still does happen. So we're still working a lot of this out. But essentially, now with the internet, we have had a major emergence of self-publishing in the previous years. We have podcasting. We have different social platforms. People can create their own websites. We have so many forms of personal self-expression that have emerged. So again, this is the cross of the sleeping phoenix already coming into play. People can design their own artwork and sell it online. People can design their own puzzles. This has been a huge, huge, huge time for this. Whereas in the past, it was hard to get things published. It was hard to get up the money to do things like that. It was difficult to distribute things. You had to try to get on a New York Times bestseller list. You had to know people. You were trying to get connections, right? Nowadays, you can just go online and self-publish, or grab a podcast mic like I did, and you can get online and do that. And so what we will see and what we've seen before is, I think, what we're going to be looking more and more for is personal self-expression. So the authenticity, right? Trusting the intuition, becoming the channel for who and what your soul wanted to be and do and have here on earth, coming through self-expression. And we're going to see systems again on and off, still trying to hang on and trying to police that or trying to make it harder. We've seen suppression of voices, think Stephen Colbert and stuff like that, where he had to end the Late Show, and then he all of a sudden was on a little PBS show in Michigan on this the next night. And so it's literally we have there's when it comes to the individual, it's during this era, we are going to see more and more support for the individual expression. And this is not just about using the voice. This is about style. Really think about how in the past there were witch hunts just because a woman disagreed or said something people didn't like. In this new era, we are going to see some rumbling with this still, right? It's going to take some time, but more and more, we're going to get past the age of the witch hunt and move more and more into responsible and conscious style and expression. And style is not just about how you look or how you dress. It's going to be more about how you carry yourself, the actual frequency you put out into the world. Someone who's really authentic, who's really aligned with themselves, carries the seed of authenticity within them, and they ignite that everywhere they go. They have that extra something special about them. That is what we're going to see ignited in the collective. Now, on that note, with personal style making a comeback, what we're seeing more and more of that we've talked about before is people upcycling things, hand making things, looking for things that are well made, even if they have to pay more for them, or even if they have to thrift them, even if they have to make them themselves, right? And so where we're starting to see some of this shift is away from the old system. Remember, larger systems, larger structures. It was all about industrialization, all about mass production, trying to have one size fits all, one product for the whole masses, right? So mass produced fashion, mass produced home decor, things like that were huge and will be for a while. But a lot of people are starting to question those systems. Is this good for the planet? Is this good for our bodies? Well, how do I wear this? And blah, blah, blah. I think we're going to see in the next 100 years the dying away of the obsession with the aesthetics and the trend. It's going to be so much more about someone carrying a frequency within them of truth and authenticity that no matter what that person's doing or wearing, it won't matter anymore. It won't matter how they're saying what they're talking. They're just going to have that seed within them. And so we're going to see more and more as the emergence of the soul, really like that recognition in people. And I think this is, again, part of the larger shift that we're seeing where people are seeing this in career, but we can no longer live according to collective conditioning and because it takes you out of alignment. So people aren't going to be so scared to leave that behind, and they're going to be seeking more and more of this thought process of, well, what really feels right for me? Who am I here to be? What am I here to do? And their personal fashion and style is just one way that comes through. It's more about the everyday decisions that they'll be making, how they're eating, how they're sleeping, how they run their life, how they think about things. That's the real true soul, the emergence. It's someone who's so in alignment with who they're actually here to be and what they're here to do that nothing and no one can touch them or question them. It's a completely different energetic field. And those people are actually way showers. There are some that have emerged so far. And the odd thing is they're probably not going to be the most popular people, because the second they get put on a pedestal, is the second other people try to emulate them, they lose it. Not the person, but the other people. And so this is essentially what's going on as well. Now, the other thing I think that this kind of makes me think of is the end of the influencer. And I really want to say too, since we're talking about personal style and it's in expression, and it's not just about fashion, it's not just what you say, it's more about, is this authentically right for you? So we're going to see the emergence of people who are stepping into true voice and choice. That's what style is all about. And as we move into that, we're going to see less and less of people using AI to script things. Now, I actually made videos about this recently, and a whole bunch of people had a lot to say about it. And there were people who were on either side of, yes, AI should be used. Who cares if they're getting information, blah, 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 why does it matter? And then we saw people who were like, no, I can tell right away. I want to say, as someone who's clairaudient and deeply intuitive, I can tell immediately, and the frequency is lower when you script with AI. It just is, because it's not your original thought. It is not how you talk. I'd rather hear you talk and mess up a million times, or what you think is mess up a million times, because it's really you. I can hear the truth of it behind the words that you're saying. And with how sensitive everyone's going to be, and we're really, again, emerging into the 2027 new era of authenticity. Using AI to script your videos isn't authentic. Even if you're like, well, but it was my idea and I just had it. But still, use your own voice. You could use AI to help you bullet it out and help you find a flow of the information. But what's keeping you from trusting your own voice in your own channel? What's keeping you from turning that light switch on? I really believe a lot of people are using this because they don't know how to channel yet. They don't know how to fully be themselves yet. And because when you do, what's going to happen is you're going to ignite something beautiful in yourself. And it's essentially the ability to say things and talk about things in exactly the way you need to, right? And people need to hear it the way you need to say it. That's what really ignites something in people. That's where truth is found, and people will feel that from you. And so what I think we'll see is, I think we're going to see over time, not right away, but over time, we're going to see a lot of this AI speaking, AI drafting things, AI art. That's going to start to wash away, and that's going to make space for AI to be used the way it actually needs to be used. So again, think like the cross-sub planning was all about blanket systems, bigger systems, sometimes things being pushed out there without, like meant to serve a whole big group of people. And it's like, well, okay, but this is what happens, right? This isn't fully formulated correctly for what everyone needs. Now, what I think we'll see in the future is AI being used correctly. And everything I've heard from people in the future is, it's integrated within healthcare. They use it for scheduling and planning. It helps a little bit more with like everyday, helping people with disabilities, helping people with everyday tasks. It's more there to help take work off of people's plates, to free up some energy so that people can create the conversations and create and study and learn things they want to learn and create art and meet with their communities and teach and create, speak and write music and do their other work, right? Do the work of the soul. AI is not meant to be doing that part. So this is what we're going to be seeing. Now, again, it's not going to be overnight. It's going to take years and years of change and people really figuring it out. There's a lot of fuck around and find out in our collective. So there's going to be a wrestling with the lower frequencies of things almost always before we get into the higher frequencies of how it's meant to be used and acclimated. But this is really like a beautiful thing, because after we emerge through this, I think what we're going to see is a lot of people becoming aware of what their actual voice and choice is. Now, because we're talking about personal style with this too, and the end of the influencer era, the reason that whole thing happened is because, so think about it, like you would see an influencer online, but then who they actually were behind the scenes wouldn't always match, right? Same thing for people who use AI scripting. People will meet you or know you and go, but that's not how you sound in person, or that's not how you actually talk, or you know what I mean? And so people are kind of like are going to not really trust that as much. And again, people who are super sensitive and super psychic, who are already out there, and all of the people who are being born and are going to emerge into their awakenings here soon, are going to know right away when the words aren't yours, when the ideas aren't yours, or the thoughts aren't yours, or like they can actually hear the difference in your voice. Even if you're like, oh, well, I had AI script it for me, but it was my thoughts and language. No, you need to say it how you would say it. That's the big difference. It's more about your frequency behind it. If you're using or trying to portray yourself as something other than you are, that authenticity can be felt by the sensitive people out there. And it creates a negative ripple effect into the world. And it actually like kind of diffuses your aura a little bit more. It makes it kind of spiky and dense. Whereas what we're going to be seeing moving into this new era of sovereignty, authenticity, deeper knowing, personal path, honoring the individual, right? Is that you're really meant to be more of your individual self. That's how you'll carry your higher frequencies within you, not by running away from who you actually are, how you actually think, how you actually speak, etc. So there's going to be a lot more of that honoring. It is going to take time, but it's incredibly important for the higher frequencies to shift and change and come through. Yeah. So I don't want to go like too much into depth with this, but if you guys want to know more about 2027 and the shifts and changes emerging, let me know and I will continue posting some more here and maybe on TikTok and in the Patreon. So another area that we might see or already are seeing this shift into sovereignty and individualism and authenticity is actually in the amount of people who are wanting to move out into nature and kind of like have their own little homesteading thing. Now, a lot of these people just kind of like want some peace and they want to be free of a lot of the systems that are at play. Like they're kind of like, hey, like, I don't think these systems are supporting me. It's time for me to do my own thing. And so they're learning how to be self-sustainable. And kind of like do things in their own style. They want to have their own expression. They want to have their own freedom. That's essentially what 2027 is going to help us emerge toward. But I think for some people, it's happening in kind of an extreme way. And I think we're going to continue to see movements like that of people sort of wanting to create new types of communities where it's more about the power back to the people. And in addition, I think a lot of the businesses and support structures we'll see in the future will be more about co-ops and things like that. I remember I did a channeling way back when, before TikTok was a thing. And it must have been like probably 2016 maybe. And it was about companies of the future. And I kept seeing them being circular in structure with all of the members of the company having ownership. And I remember that being a channeling in which I started to tell people like, here's what the companies of the future are going to look like, et cetera. And people were like, interesting. Because co-ops weren't a huge thing then. Like they existed, but they weren't really, really popular. But I think we'll see more and more of this, like, Kickstarter style, co-op type of things where we have the power back in the hands of the people, rather than it being like one government or one company or one system or one group of people who's decided, hey, we're creating this and here, like, this is what you get because this is what we created. I think we're going to see a lot of shifts and changes there as well with a lot of our systems like grocery stores, and even health insurance and things like that. I've always thought to myself, why do we not have like crowdfunded health insurance? Like, why don't we just like take out the middleman? I think we'll have crowdfunded healthcare, co-opted things. I think we're going to see a lot of shifts there as well. I don't know the right names for what I'm seeing. I'm just trying to describe them in the best way that I can. But essentially putting more power back in the hands of the people will be extremely important moving past this 2027 exchange. And just remember, again, won't happen all overnight. Some of this may take 50 years. It's definitely going to be a much larger shift. Now, before we go really quick, I wanted to talk about our next gene key that we're moving into. From May 27th to June 1st, we will be activating gene key 16. That's what's in the transit. That's what the sun is illuminating and lighting up. And so remember, with each gene key transit, it's all about shifting into the higher frequencies. And often that means you're going to have to clear or work through something in the lower, the denser frequencies in order to do that. And or so will the collective and people around you, because these are just collective frequencies. Okay, so we're going to be overcoming and moving through the shadow of indifference into the city and the higher realms of full mastery. And we'll be doing this by way of versatility. Now, think about what versatility really is. Versatility is all about allowing yourself to be used as the vessel in the moment. So this gene key is an awesome one because it's all about activating something within you and channeling. And if you've heard me talk about this in the past, you know that like when you're fully letting yourself be the vessel, that's when you can write wonderful things. That is when you can do things that you didn't know how to do before. That's when something sort of activates in you. It's almost like, hey, if someone else in the world has this ability, you could almost tap into it and have it for yourself, even for that split second moment. So I love this gene key. It's a big one for channelers, and it's all about being versatile. So not limiting ourselves to what we think our skills are or what we think our abilities are. It's all about saying, okay, well, what if I could do that? And letting ourselves be more versatile by accepting that our soul and the channel is always there, that we're just the vessel for higher consciousness to flow through, to be used in the moment. So you can start by saying, okay, higher consciousness, higher self, how do you want to use my vessel today? Like, show me what you got. What do you got for me? Let's go for it. This really invites us to stretch into a new area as well. So watch for areas where you might feel a little bit inspired, extra enthusiasm, ignited towards something new. So just like stay aware for when your invitation arrives. Like, you're going to be getting invitations or ideas, things like that from the universe, from people around you during this time period that are inviting you into something new, something to show you your versatility. Like, you know how like when you have a skill that you've worked on for a really, really long time, or like, let's say like you get a certain major in school, you start to realize like, oh, I can actually use this in a couple of different fields or professions. I don't have to only get one type of job. That's what this gene key will highlight during this time period. So it's really a good time period to kind of like break out of old patterns in areas where you were like maybe a little bit lazy, indifferent, feeling like helpless might come up during this time period as well. And just remember, like, you know, what if I can allow myself to be the vessel to create something new? Where's my divine spark? Like, just really look into like, hey, like soul, what are you calling for me to explore or to expand into during this lifetime? This is truly like the time period where you can make some really cool changes or discover new things about yourself through versatility. And this is also a time period where once you develop a skill and you realize you can use it in a bunch of different ways throughout your life, whether it's different industries, in your everyday life, in your relationships, etc., that's when you are really truly attaining mastery. But according to the gene keys, the second you attain mastery is the second that you're like kind of enlightened and you actually don't have to master anything at all, because you're just perfectly in presence and in peace. Now, the other thing about versatility and mastery is that this energy is really self-sustaining. So it's a really, really cool gene key. I mean, versatility is literally all about sustainability, because when you have this in your gene keys, like when you have this ability to be like the Swiss Army knife. So for example, like using your intuition in a whole bunch of situations rather just one or the other. That's when you actually, have a self-sustaining energy, right? Because you're much more efficient. And I've always said this about channeling, for example, like, well, you don't have to try to figure things out all the time. You don't have to always learn all these new things. You can have the deliciousness of that process, but often you can just channel things. And if you can just channel them and use your intuition, you're going to be more efficient energetically. Things don't take as long. There's less resistance. Things happen a lot faster, and they're a lot more seamless. So it's a pretty cool gene key to activate. So really watch for opportunities to overcome that indifference or that feeling of like, ugh, like, what am I here for? I can't do it. What's the point? Like that type of stuff. And really look for opportunities to see the gifts that you have within you and what is also calling you forward to engage in your gifts, your talents, the things that you didn't know that you know right in front of you in new ways, because that will definitely be showing up throughout many different opportunities during this gene key. Again, we'll be in this one until June 1st. So it should be an interesting and cool activation. I love this one. It's always, like I said, it's a great one for channeling. It's also a great one for new creative projects. Like I super got into crochet this last weekend, and I just taught myself how to make granny squares. And I got my embroidery kit out. Like I'm just like, okay, I'm going to master this. I got our sewing machine back out. Yeah, so it's just feeling like one of those time periods where it's like, okay, what's ready? What's ready to emerge? What's ready to be learned? What's ready to be known? And some of my channeling times have been really, really profound as well. Like, and I've seen people have really cool things emerge through them as well when they started to open that channel. It's not just creativity; it's almost like this ingenuity. There are even people who talked about like where they didn't have to study for tests and stuff like that, but then they would know the answer and understand the material on the spot because they just channeled it. When I channel, I write like entire things full of content and speak entire things that I didn't know that I knew before, but other people are kind of like coming through and teaching with me. So in essence, like the 16th gift of versatility is all about remembering that we're all one consciousness in the end. And so if I'm just a vessel for consciousness to come through, then I can channel truly anything through this vessel that's needed. We just have to learn how to like call upon it or let it emerge through us. So pretty cool. Like I said, I will be posting more of these types of things in the Patreon group, and I hope that you guys will come and watch that in there and enjoy all of these updates in there. I do have the channeling courses open. They are both starting in late June, but I hope you'll come and check out our classes that are coming up as well. They're listed in the show notes, like I mentioned, and on my website. You're welcome to sign up separately or join the Patreon to take the classes as well. And then the courses, you do have to sign up separately through the website, but you're welcome to come and join us. The Art of Channeling course is an intermediate course, and it's going to focus on lucid and clear conduit channeling. It's where you kind of like let spirit speak through you rather than to you. So mastering, that ability to channel through entering altered states of consciousness, letting your mind move aside a little bit, which unironically is what the 16th gene key allows us to do when we slip into true versatility. It's like our mind gets out of the way and we just let life or whatever needs to be done through us. So perfect timing for that. And then we will also have the art of Autowriting starting at the end of June, and that course is more focused on channeling through Autowriting. So again, a seamlessness, something that invites itself through you to bring words of comfort, wisdom, support, etc. And both of these courses will teach you to channel whoever needs to come through and speak through you, even your own higher self, even the higher collective consciousness, whether it's a loved one, a guide, an angel, a teacher, or someone that you really admire who's passed away in the beyond. You can channel truly anyone as long as they're willing to also come through. And so we will teach you how to do that much more seamlessly, either through speaking in the Art of Channeling course or in Autowriting. And so you can also take both courses if you'd like to. Just let me know if you have questions about them. And thank you all so much. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast episode. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, submit your questions for future episodes of the podcast, and make sure you check out my other podcast. It's called Afterlife Interviews, The Women That History Tried to Erase. And it's where I bring women through from the other side who had their stories erased or had their voices stifled. These are women who truly accomplished wonderful things. And in many cases, even if some of their accomplishments were known or their name is known, a big part of their story has been lost, forgotten, or suppressed. Or for many of them, men kind of took ownership of their accomplishments. Some of them, it was their own boyfriends, husbands, or fathers. So yeah. So I'm giving them the chance to come through from the other side and share their spiritual wisdom, their afterlife perspectives, and even to spill a little bit of the spiritual tea. So I hope you guys will check out that podcast as well. Thank y'all.